Michelle Payne, welcome to Straight Talk.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. Actually, it's a real honour, privilege to have someone like you sitting here in front of me, to be frank with you.
Thank you.
I never expected, famous is not a good word, I don't like that word famous, but have someone as highly respected as you and having achieved the levels that you've achieved, and, I don't mean this in a condescending way, but being female as well, in a male sport, which, that's something that I never envisaged. And thanks to our great friend, Nanette Moulton. I'm so happy that you're here. And bear with me because, everyone in Australia follows the Melbourne Cup. Everyone in Australia has a bit of a bet. But I don't know much about your game or the game you used to be in. Now you're a trainer. But just bear with me a little bit because maybe this is even better that I don't know, because I'm going to ask some questions that you might think are a bit naive. But they're things I'm really curious about. But before I do that part, there's something else I'm really curious about. What it's like, and I watched the Netflix show on you, and I saw all that sort of stuff. But I'm so glad I'm actually got you here in front of me. What is it like to be the youngest of 10 kids? I mean, that's like mental. I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine what it'd be like, especially as well not having your mum there from never really knew her or never had a chance of knowing her. What's that like when you reflect back?
Well, it's funny you say that, like, as I'm older now, I realize how unusual that is to have such a big family, but obviously I didn't know any different growing up, so it was all we knew. It was a madhouse. My dad did his best raising all 10 of us on his own when mum passed away. I didn't have a room for the first 7 years of my life, didn't have a bed, so I just found somewhere to sleep. And then after that, I shared with Stevie, the second youngest older brother, who has Down syndrome, and that in itself, had its challenges because he would snore and talk to himself and whatever. But yeah, it was fast paced, kids everywhere. When I was born, my two older sisters were already riding in races, so they were 15 and 16. So they were off to the races. So as I grew, a lot of the other kids below them started racing. So we had a house full of jockeys, and my dad was a horse trainer. So up early, training the horses with him. Us younger kids stayed in the house and cleaned it. We all had our chores while the older ones went out and did the stable work and got the horses done. So it was just a working family. My dad loved it. He said it was some of the best years of his life, even though he had obviously lost my mum, which was devastating. They had a really good marriage and loving marriage. But yeah, it was pretty fun, I have to say,
Was it
looking
fun?
back.
Always fun?
Not always fun. We went to school and we were tired, falling asleep at school because we were up early doing our jobs, and thought we were a little bit hard done by that we had to work, and our school friends, were just having a sleep in and just had to get ready and off to school. But when we look back, we had so much fun. We were always, outside, playing games and activities. And I think sometimes we look back and think we survived because obviously hard for dad to keep track of 10 kids. He just had to let us go. Stevie and I were the youngest two, and he was, older than me but Down syndrome. So, we were off doing whatever we did out on the farm and having the time of our lives. But, looking back, it was probably a bit dangerous in a way, but at the same time, a wonderful childhood.
It's because not only were you one of 10, which is like, 'cause that's not normal. Um, Even back in that time when, if we go back 20, 30 years, that wasn't normal then either. But then, of course, no mother. Um, your dad, I've got 4 kids, 4 sons, and I pretty much raised my 4 sons on my own. They live with me for a whole lot of complicated reasons. And that was enough for me. But I had, a nanny and a driver to pick them up from school to drop them to sport, had someone to come and, do all the washing and sort of, all I did was go to work and have dinner with them at night. Um, your dad, do you sit back and reflect on how the hell did he do it?
Absolutely. Obviously, the older you get, you realize. And He's a pretty amazing man in his own way. Like I said, to even be relaxed enough to let us go out and play, he had to. I think he couldn't have survived if he was worrying about every one child. And in a way, a bit of luck went our way with that because somebody could have got injured. Sort of having that free reign on the farm, like we had motorbikes and like four wheelers. There was a channel that ran beside our dairy farm, which we had at one point growing up, and yeah, we didn't even know how to swim, but we learned to swim in the channel by ourselves. So a little bit of luck come his way as well. But yeah, when I look back and think what he did, running the family, running the business, obviously having the dairy farm, which is relentless work, morning and night. Not only with that though, he raised us by giving us competitions, geography competitions, spelling bees, maths competitions. He was never too tired to do that with us, and I just think that is amazing. Raising 10 kids, running a business, and being able to do that as well. I yeah, honestly take my hat off to him, and with that as well, he always made sure we had really good manners. If you meet somebody, shake the hand, look them in the eye, give them a good firm handshake. He was never too tired to do that, and he is a remarkable man.
Well, what was his superpower when you think about it? I mean, he must have had some sort of superpower. Like, I mean, that's something like it looks like sound by the sound of it, and obviously, I mean, from what I saw from the show, and I've heard nothing other than what I saw on the show. It's like he just jumped off the cross. Like he's so good. Well, what was his natural superpower? What is his endurance? Like a certain resilience or stamina that he had?
I think probably a certain resilience and his capability to just handle hard times. Like obviously, I used to think about when I was growing up and I was having tough times riding, had a bad fall, or my riding career wasn't going as good as I'd like it to be, or just down in the dumps. And would think back to that day when they came to the door and said my mum had been killed, taking the kids to school in a car accident, and just think how would anybody get through that? And how he did was just said to the kids, we've got to stick together and get through it together. And that's his mindset. I've lost two sisters since then, and same thing, devastating. And he was absolutely devastated, but he just stays so strong. And I think a big part of that is his faith. He's very religious, very Catholic. We would always go to church every Sunday growing up, all the kids, and we'd be sitting around watching TV or having dinner, and he'd say, "Okay, kids, we'll say the rosary,"
Oh,
and
wow.
we'd stop and say the rosary three times all together. And he'd just always talk about his faith, and I think that is what got him through losing my mum, and then again my two sisters that followed, and I think it's definitely helped me through my career as well because life is tough, and having that faith is certainly a way of coping for sure.
Were your older siblings, particularly the female ones, are they much more matriarchal to say the younger kids as a result of your mum not being there? Do you think they took up the flag for your dad, realizing there was no leading woman in the family, so to speak, and that they knew that they had to do the work of what their mother would have had to do if the mother had been around?
Definitely, they were remarkable. I think having had the presence of her as they were growing up, and from what I've been told by dad, she was an amazing lady. She had 10 children, she ran the books of the business, she cooked and cleaned, amazing cook, they said. She was Swiss, and she cooked a lot of Swiss meals, and we had a cow, she'd milk the cow for all the kids, and then she'd take the leftover milk into the homeless shelter, in Ballarat. That just,
Wow.
and I don't know what spare time, obviously she had a million clothes to wash with 10 kids. So she sounded like a pretty amazing woman, and I think, my sisters had that, role model growing up, and, when I remember being sort of 4, as young as I can remember, sort of 4 or 5, and my dad always used to talk about it. I think he wanted me to feel that presence of her, and used to tell me every day, how much he loved her and how much he missed her and how much he wished he told her more that he loved her. And then I think, yeah, my sisters saw the need to be nurturing to us younger kids, and especially probably the second eldest, Therese. She really took the role of being the mother. She made sure we always had a meal on the table. She was full-time race riding at the time herself, only a kid at the same time, and just remarkable. And I remember sort of being in younger primary school years and Mother's Day at school, I'd buy her a Mother's Day gift. I didn't feel like I didn't have a mum to buy a gift for. It was just I'd buy one for Therese. So, I feel so lucky to have had their presence in our lives because they're mothers now and I get to watch that. And yeah, it's just remarkable to think how they took that role on it at such a young age.
Does do those things in turn and have those things in turn, like your dad's resilience and his sort of mental toughness, and your sister's ability to nurture the whole family. Do you think those things stood by you? Because often parents tell kids you got to be this, you can't do that, and you got to do that. But actually, kids watch what their parents are doing, and or older brothers and sisters for that matter too, and they tend to do what they see as opposed to what they hear.
Mm.
And do you reckon in some of those darker times that you've had, like when you've been injured, etc., or when you're being rejected, or when you're trying to, get on a group one, that those observations stood by you? And was it conscious? I mean, did you consciously think of that? Like, my dad's done it pretty tough. I owe it to him up here.
Mm. Absolutely. I think I can remember from as young as 7 years old being out in the stables cleaning, learning the chores and cleaning the boxes and just watching Therese, for example, of all of them, she stood out to me the most because she was so no fuss. She'd get in there, she'd get the boxes done so quickly and efficiently. And I remember at that age looking at her thinking that is just amazing.
He
And
was
and
clean the crap out, basically.
yeah,
Yeah,
but quick, no
yeah,
no fuss, just
yeah.
get in there, get it done. And I honestly remember thinking at the time, how good, and that was my role model. So I always thank, her for a lot of my success and my other brothers and sisters because, especially my sisters, because, it was tough. It was much tougher for them riding back, sort of 10 years before I started, or even 15 years before I started, because there wasn't many of them. Sometimes they didn't even have a jockey's room to go into that. There was like a trailer or something for them to change and prepare for their race. But they were just no fuss. They'd get out there. They'd go to the races. They didn't see themselves, as a female jockey, and not poor me. Sometimes they get a bit frustrated because. My brother Patrick would pinch their rides, and there'd be a fair bit of swearing and carrying on at home. But I think their presence and watching and learning from them was just the best start I could have had to going into a career that is, or was very, very male dominated.
I mean, I don't mean to be condescending, but when I look at what I know of your history and your life, it's just full of challenges, but more importantly, full of conquering challenges, like just one after the other. So, mum passed away when you were a young baby, not just passed away, a tragic accident. You're one of 10 kids. That in itself is a challenge. Then you got, you observe your father dealing with that challenge. And that in itself would have been a challenge because you probably felt guilty on occasions. Dad had to do things that wouldn't ordinarily wouldn't be asked of a father. While some might think it's a challenge, you had Stevie. Probably not a challenge because my interaction with um, boys and or girls or men who have Down syndrome, they just tend to be some of the most loving, simple people. Get life really simple. They get it. They're generally speaking, they are the best to deal with. I have great empathy for those children and or adults in that situation. But some would see that as another challenge, but somehow you managed to conquer it. Out of all your brothers and sisters, it seems like you've got the closest relationship. Do you think that's because you were closest in age or just you two just hit it off?
Definitely because we were closest in age with the little kids. Wasn't even Stevie and Michelle. It's just like, has anyone seen the little kids? If one
Yeah.
was somewhere, the other
Little
one was
girl.
there. Yeah, little girl. So we just were together all the time, basically. More so because the kids that were a bit older than us said, "Oh, you're annoying. Go." We were too little to play their games
Yeah.
with them, so it was just Stevie and I. And obviously, I didn't know any different, so
Mm.
it was nothing for me. And to be honest, like you spoke about with Down syndromes, they're the most beautiful,
Ah, totally.
loving people in the world. And how lucky was I to grow up with Stevie and the empathy and everything he has. For example, this is what happens in a big family and where dad let us go a bit. Our brother bought us boxing gloves for Christmas because we thought it would be funny if he put them on us
On
to
the two of
fight.
you?
Yep. I was 5, Stevie was 7. And then they made a ring with all the kids because it was enough to make it a big enough ring for us and had us fighting, and Stevie didn't wanna hit me because he just didn't want to, like, it's not in his nature, and they're like, "Get her, Stevie, get her," and I'm, like, running around trying to poke one into him, and he got me connected, and I started crying 'cause obviously he hurt me, and he felt that bad. I remember looking up at his face, and he was just devastated that he got me, but, yeah, just an amazing person to share my life and grow up with, and, we played, games together, and we just had the best fun, and sometimes, like, we would be playing a game of cards, and I might give him 1 card to start with, and I'd have the pack because I knew that I was able to learn faster, but he caught up. He eventually now we play one-on-one, fair, even game, and he's just remarkable, and what I've been able to watch him face his challenges and grow and overcome things is just unbelievable, and it's even now, like, he's, 42 and just continues to grow, get smarter, he's hilarious, he's so funny, quick-witted, knows, the right moments to say things, he can read people a lot better than a lot of people without a challenge have, so honestly, we're just so lucky to have him in our lives, especially me being so close with him. We own our farm together now, and he's just a pleasure and a privilege to be around and to have.
Yeah, and I hope you don't mind me just ask a couple more questions because I'm actually fascinated by Stevie. And, Stevie, you fascinate me. And you're right. I mean, I only know him from the movie. I don't know him, but do you think that I know I don't want to get too weird about God and stuff like that, but and your mum, your late mother, but do you think that to some extent those people like Stevie who have such a good heart and are so inspirational are actually put there for a reason for you to think to yourself, get on with it, and what you learn from those people. If someone like Stevie, like it seems to me that someone like Stevie can teach us all a lot of stuff. Is it? Do you ever thank your mother for that outcome?
I just think, like we say many times, he's a blessing, and honestly, like in a way, a miracle to have in our lives.
Yeah,
He's now home with dad. Dad's 89. I had a family of house full of 10 kids. Imagine, being left alone and lonely. He has Stevie there living with him. They get on unbelievably well. Dad teases Stevie like you wouldn't believe. I know he's Down syndrome, but Dad, we've never treated him like he's Down syndrome, and I think that's really been the making of him. And something I think that should be maybe more documented because he's so capable and can handle so much responsibility because he's been given that chance in life. And they just have the best time. So for how the circumstances have unfolded with mum passing away and dad obviously being left, all the kids have left home, to now have him there with him is unbelievable. And again, like, to have him there on the day of the Melbourne Cup, strapping Prince of Penzance, to imagine that could have ever possibly happened, you would give yourself 10,000,000 to 1 chance growing up or even more than that. So it is in a way a bit of a blessing and a miracle, and,
it's a fairy tale.
yeah, it is. It's a fairy tale.
I mean, when I think of your dad at 89, and my father got to 89, and at 89 they're a little frail, and there's a lot that needs to be done for them. They need a lot of assistance at that stage, and also they feel a bit mentally frail because it's getting on, and they're not as strong as they were before. And for the fact that someone like Stevie can be there as his companion, so to call, is he still doing strapping? Like, is he still strapping horses, Stevie?
He hasn't been the last few years. He needs a knee operation, so he's not at the moment. He still can, but he's just a bit slower.
Yeah, yeah.
But even that in itself is amazing because the horses sense it and they just slow down for him. And it's a funny story. I think it was last year, him and I took one of our horses to the races at Mini Valley, and I let it in with him, thinking I'll just see if it's going to be too strong. Because earlier in the day, he was charging around and I was struggling to keep up, and I thought it might be a bit quick for him. And took it into the mounting, and I said, if you need a hand, I'll just be in the middle watching it. And he's like, no worries. The horse was like 20, 30 meters behind the one in front. It slowed down that much just so Stevie could comfortably keep up with it and just sense that, his, challenges. And one of the most amazing things about working with, the horses, how intuitive they are and how amazing, his connection with them is.
Can I explore that? Because I've never had experience. Well, I have had a bit of experience at Centennial Park when I was younger, like going to the stables there and getting someone to give us a horse and take us a tour around Centennial Park, etc. But um, horses are like an amazing looking animal, unbelievably athletic. They're big, muscular. On one hand, they're really, you have a great amount of respect for them, but on the other hand, they can be a bit scary too because they're so big. And you're by no means a titan in terms of size. You're a jockey, former jockey, and they're the opposite. They are titans in the animal kingdom, and they can do everything in an athletic sense. How is it that you seem to be able to, and someone like Stevie too, and probably your brothers and sisters? I don't know much about them, but have the ability to sort of have command in relation to horses. Is it the fact that you have great knowledge of how they think and operate, or you have an empathy towards them, or they have an empathy towards you? What is that world like? I don't
Mm.
understand it.
I think it's a whole range of things, really. We were brought up with them, so second nature to be around them, even though they are huge animals, as you said. But we were taught from a young age that they need to respect you. So there's that level of respect, and then trust. They need to trust you as well. And
Can I actually stop with you? When you said you were taught from a young age that they need to respect you, which no doubt is what your dad told you. What does that mean? They need to respect you. Like, is that a advice on as to how to approach the horse?
how to handle them. Like if they just think they can pull you around, they'll just do that. Like not because they're bad animals. It's just because you just need to form that connection that they're not going to be able to get away with doing whatever they want to do. And even from a 5-year-old, as no matter how big they were, they still respect if you show them that you're strong enough and you'll stand up to them. But they'll sense fear in a second. They're unbelievably intuitive. Like obviously dogs are incredibly intuitive, but every bit as much so as them. So it's all about that. And then once you've got that, it's about mutual respect, and then they trust you. And once you have their trust, it's the most amazing feeling in the world. Like you could ride a horse on a piece of cotton when it responds to you, and that feeling is one of the best things about being a jockey, because you need everything to be going your way in a race. It's a game of inches. It's dangerous, and part and parcel of that is having a horse that will do what you want to do at split second decisions and stuff like that. So it makes it a great sport in that way, because, you're working with an animal, and not just any animal, a 600-kilo beast. And, that's part of what I love so much about riding, because it's not easy and you have to work hard at it. And, one of the most beautiful things about working with the animals that we do.
Do you know, we've just gone through maybe 5 factors or so, at the risk of repeating myself. Mother passed away at the age of 6 months, the youngest of 10 kids, an unbelievable relationship with your Down syndrome older brother, 2 years older, um, um, becoming a jockey, a smallish person dealing with a massive beast. Everything I've asked you about, most people would see as a challenge. Some would feel like, and there's a number of other challenges we're going to talk about in a moment. But some people would feel as though on some occasions they're the victim. But for some reason, every one of them you've turned into a good thing, like it's some sort of blessing. Like everyone, where the hell do you get that sort of mindset from? That's a mindset game. You born that way, or did you develop that way, or did your dad sort of drum it into you, or did you dream about it, or is it part of your faith? What is it?
Not sure. From a very young age, I was really a quiet kid. I think probably being the youngest of 10, you'll put back in your place pretty quickly. So I watched and learned and listened a lot, and I think that's a big thing. You obviously learn a lot more when you're quiet and you're listening. Um, and I had a lot of brothers and sisters wanting to teach me too. Like I was the little one, and they just wanted to help where they could. And I really am blessed to have had the upbringing that I've had because of that. But yeah, I think just, just sitting back, watching it all, also believing I could do it. I think that was one of the biggest things. There's one line that I've said a few times about my dad, and that he used to walk around the house saying just daily, the girls are as good as the boys, they just need the opportunities. And he was just saying it because my older sisters are riding and they won't get in the rides he thought sometimes they should. And he just would say it off the cuff, not thinking, I would listen or take
Just
it
like
in.
random.
Yeah, yep. And yeah, I just grew up listening to those words, thinking, well, that sounds pretty good to me, sounds pretty right.
You
So,
believed it.
exactly. And I grew up thinking, why couldn't I be, as good as the boys? I work hard. I've grown up with horses all my life. Watched my older sisters who did very well, and just needed the opportunities to prove that. And I think that simple line of that as a young kid just embedded into my brain and gave me the confidence to believe in myself.
So you're saying to me he didn't sit you down and say to you, "You can be as good as anybody," or, "You can if you get the opportunity, you can be as good as the boys or any boy." But you just sort of randomly heard it, like, as part of his, let's call it his patter, that the way he spoke, and you obviously heard it a lot. Then there's something about your belief system then, so you believed him. What is it that gets a young kid, what do you think in your case at least, is that, for you as a young child, believed in your dad? Because, sometimes you tell kids things, I said I got 4 kids, I mean, they don't, they say, "Yeah, right, Dad," well, especially these days. Um, they don't believe everything I say, they believe in everything I say, particularly these days, they're older, but even when they were kids, and in fact, some personalities out of my sons would go the opposite direction no matter what I said. But I tended to say it to them, as opposed to just sort of randomly saying it. What is it about you that allowed you to believe that what your dad said was correct? Because that's the biggest challenge
Mm.
that you've overcome.
I think he wasn't, like you said, he wasn't saying it directly to me or any of us. And he probably even didn't even know I was listening because it was busy. It was a noisy household. There was
I can
always
imagine.
fights and kids everywhere. So if I asked him now, he doesn't even know I tell that story. And if I asked him now, he probably wouldn't even really remember or think I was sitting there like, oh, yeah, right, that sounds pretty right. And yeah, probably just that fact. And like I said, it was a busy household. Kids were coming and going all the time. There's cars everywhere in the front yard. Um, Race bags everywhere, saddles and stuff. Like you can't. It's hard to even explain to imagine. The movie couldn't depict how crazy it really was, even though they tried. So yeah, just in that madhouse, and kids are coming home from the races. How'd you go today? Yeah, no, good. Got taken off this one. So we were hearing all of those. I was hearing all of those things, of just everyday working life, and it wasn't pretend. Everything was, survival, and a real life job. And it's a tough job. You've got people putting a lot of money into their horses, people gambling on them, people yelling out over the fence at them, giving them grief or whatever. So I think it was just a way of him supporting my older sisters, to you can be as good as the guys. You just need the opportunities, and hopefully one will come their way. And he also trained a number of horses. I think he had around 25, and shared them as best he could between them all as well. So he just needed a good horse to give them that. And one story that blows me away is my older sister Therese, who I spoke about. She was 14 when she started racing, which I started at 15, and I was such a baby. I thought I was ready, and you get thrown into the world of racing, and you're in a field on this 600 kilo animal out of control because you're still getting stronger, getting pushed around from pillar to post by the older jockeys. And I remember thinking to myself, "Oh my god, I didn't think this. I wasn't going to be prepared because I watched so many races." She rode as a 14-year-old, and she was riding for 6 months. And Dad had a horse going for the Adelaide Cup, which is a 2-mile race. Group 1 at that point, which is top level, and he needed a rider at 47 kilos, and he was struggling to find somebody, So he thought, "Oh, I'll put Therese on." So by this stage, she was 14 and a half years old, been riding 6 months, going into a 2-mile race on a stallion, which is they're even bigger and stronger. Um, to me, that blows me away that, she was able to do that, and I asked her about it, she said, "Oh, I was alright." She just went out there and did it. So that was the upbringing I had watching, those sort of things, and, wouldn't be heard of today. I think the youngest you can start riding is 16, so, just remarkable.
You just said your sister was 47.5 kilos, I think you said.
The horse had 47, so she
She
would have been around 45 kilos.
45 kilos.
Mm.
Um, and just on that, I mean, just so we get a bit of an insight into a jockey's life, um, and I'd like to actually cover off, the training regimes, etc., in terms of time and all that sort of stuff, and the competition around it. But just in terms of being 45 kilos, even a diminutive woman would struggle at 45 to get to 45 kilos. What does it actually mean, like in terms of how you lead your life, maybe for the week before the race, and maybe, and I don't know, do you need to train at do you need to take the horse for it's training around the paddock at 45 as well, or it's okay for you to be much heavier before you lose the weight? And what's the weight loss program look like? How
Um
intense and hectic?
So for her, she was 14, so she was really light. For example, when I started racing, I was 47 at 15. So sort of the build of our family, and at that age is still, growing, and, she might be 50, 55 now, 40 kilos.
Still small.
Yeah, we're still small people, but, as you get older and you mature and you get to your full size, that's when the challenge comes to maintaining weight and being at the right weight on the day. That can be a whole range of challenges, and people do it in different ways to suit themselves, suit their bodies, the best way that they're going to perform on the day. You have to sort of work that out along the way. One thing might
It's a
work for
balance.
somebody. Yeah, one thing might work for somebody and not another. So yeah, it all just depends on the individual. But you watch and you learn things and you try. If that works, that works. If it doesn't, try something else.
Did you ever do anything though that sort of resulted in you being not ready to ride? As a result of maybe pulling the pardon the pun, pulling the wrong rein on your own weight loss. So, like if you're not experienced in this sort of stuff, and for some reason you decide, well, I'm just not going to drink any water for 2 days. I mean, by the way, that type of weird stuff does happen in
Mm.
other sports, um, but it affects your brain, your thought processes, your strength, your ability to respond, your time to respond, which all those things are critical in what you're doing. Did you ever stuff it up?
One time that I can recall is I had my first ride in the Caulfield Cup. At 50 kilos, I think I was 24 at the time, and the 50 kilos I hadn't ridden for 6 years in the lead up to it, but it was one of my biggest opportunities to ride in a race like that. Then went on to race in the Melbourne Cup. So I definitely wasn't saying no, but getting to that was just one of the toughest things I've had to go through. I think the last half a kilo on the day took me 7 hours to get off. It just wouldn't come off my body. Eventually got to the weight and rode the horse. She ran well. She ran top 8, which was really good. And then the next week I was riding, it was for champion trainer Bart Cummings, and, it was an unbelievable opportunity to ride for such a trainer of his caliber. And I was riding again for him the next week in the Moonee Valley Cup, and it had 51 kilos. And I thought, it should be right. I've just ridden 50, should be a piece of cake getting to 51. Anyway, the morning of the race, I had, I think, a kilo to lose, and I thought that was in range. I usually could lose up to a kilo and a half if I had to. Anyway, my body would not let go. I could not lose the weight, and I was running out of time. Ended up having to make my way to the track, and I rang the foreman at the time, Reg Fleming, and I said, "Reg, I'm not going to be able to make the weight. I don't even think I can be half over. I think I'm going to be a kilo over." And he said, "Oh, Bart's not going to be happy. We might have to try and find a replacement, but if there's not a replacement, you obviously have to ride her." But anyway, got there, no one could ride the horse, so I rode it a kilo over. She ran 3rd, she ran really well. I don't think it affected where she finished because she was beaten too far for 2nd, but I did lose the ride on her the next start, but was then lucky enough to go on and ride the same horse for Bart in the Melbourne Cup from the Caulfield Cup at 50 and a half. But I had 10 days then to try to get back down to that weight, so That's the whole thing about learning your body. I didn't realize because I'd done it so tough to get to the 50, my body didn't want to let go to get to 51 the next week. So just things like that along
Half
the
a
way.
kilo.
Yeah, crazy that it can make such a
And
difference.
does it affect your sleep?
You're exhausted. As a
Yeah.
jockey, you're up at 3:30. You ride all morning, you come home, you might get an hour's nap, you might not even get that. You go to the race all day, you get home 7, 8, 9 o'clock. So sleeping was never a problem.
Yeah, well, you're exhausted.
You're exhausted. You go to bed hungry. You go to bed with this, your stomach's churning most of the time.
But do you feel as though sometimes, whilst you choose that life, do you ever think to yourself, "Wow, have I done any permanent damage to myself from living that life during that sort of critical period of growing, etc." Like especially, I shouldn't say this, but no, I'm going to say, especially for a woman, because there's lots of other things going on for a female at the time.
Yeah, look, I think definitely in some ways it's tough. You're starving yourself. Sometimes it's healthier than eating bad things, though.
That's true.
So it's probably the extreme way of looking after yourself. But you're healthy. You've got to be healthy to perform it. You're an athlete. Like you said before, you've got to be thinking split second decisions. You've got to be sharp. You've got to be alert. You've got to be strong. You're riding a 600-kilo animal. You're in a race. You've got to be agile. Everything has to work together. So. Um, Whilst, it could be seen as unhealthy in a way, I think it probably is not the worst way of living, but as a female, it can affect your cycle just because you're underweight. I haven't had any kids, but my sisters have had no trouble having kids, and they live the same sort of similar life, and yeah, hopefully it's not gonna be any effect on me, but, yeah, in a way, I think overeating and eating bad foods is more unhealthy and going out partying than probably the life we were living.
It's a good way to look at it. I mean, it's not the way I was thinking, but it's a good way to look at it. As typical from just this half-hour conversation so far, you look at everything from the bright side. You're optimistic about everything. I often want to know when you're sitting there, ready to the race about to start, and you're getting ready. Are you excited or nervous or shitting yourself? What's going on?
Oh my god, I could tell you a whole range of feelings.
What do
The
you?
amount of thoughts you can have in a
That's
short
what I
period of
mean.
time is amazing.
All of
Um,
them.
exactly. So learning to deal with nerves was one of the biggest things that I found from a young age because I wanted it so bad. I tried my whole life to be jockey and the best I could be, and finally you get opportunities and good ones and good races, your horse's favorite. You're like, right, and nerves is going to, get in the way of your thinking. You haven't got time to be nervous and have that cloud your judgment in a race. You've got a split second to make a decision. Sometimes quarter of a second. Should you take that run? Should you wait? So I knew from a young age I had to conquer it because it was going to kill my game. And I love the tactical side of riding. It's one of my favorite things
Once you're in
about
the
it.
race, you mean? Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. So clear thinking is basically one of the most important things. So behind the barriers, I used to get so nervous. I'm like, right, just deep breaths, think like just slow down your breathing, relax. Whatever happens, happens. If it's unlucky, if you don't get the run you want to have, you'll be okay after the race. Don't worry about it because worrying is not going to make you ride the horse well. It's going to make you stuff it up. So I years and years of practicing that and learning to just calm your nerves, and not only that, your horse can feel it. If you're nervous through your legs, they're that sensitive. They can tell if you're a bit on edge.
Wow,
So
really?
exactly, yeah. It's everything, and that's what I was trying to explain to you about racing. There's so much involved that makes it so amazing and fun. So that was one of the biggest things to learn and to deal with. The other thing is fear because it is dangerous. So you're in the barriers. I think I had a bit of PTSD probably through my life from having so many bad injuries, and even though I have faith, you can't help but think, what could go wrong
The worst outcome.
exactly when things have gone wrong. So that was one thing that my faith come into it. I'd say a little prayer, say to mum.
Oh, wow.
I had an older brother that passed away when he was 3 days old called Michael, who I was named after. I was born on his birthday, so
Oh, like there's 11
yeah, it was
kids.
11.
Wow.
She'll probably
You got any
say
more
this.
things you
So I'd say a little prayer to mum and to Michael and to God, keep me safe out there. Please help me make the right decisions at the right time. And I instantly feel calm. So obviously the faith just, would help me through those times. But yeah, like, because there was times having falls, one time in particular, this was I was probably been riding, I think, 13 years, and I was in the barriers and had at this point a fractured skull, fractured vertebrae, dislocated ankle.
You not whilst you're on the horse. You'd had already previously had that.
Had
Yeah,
these
yeah, yeah,
falls
yeah.
on from falls, so I was, had a lot go wrong, and, in the barriers in this I remember it really clearly. Usually, I couldn't remember the fall because I was knocked out through concussion and everything, but this day I remember, and the horse was having its first start in the country in Victoria and standing up really straight, ready to go, and I remember thinking to myself, "What a lovely little horse, 3-year-old young horse, give him a pat." 1,000-meter race, so you got to jump fast, get your spot. Anyway, he for some reason, and I've never seen it before, after, but when he went to jump, he didn't move his front legs. They just stayed straight, and he just absolutely face planted.
Well,
And usually, when they stumble, you can pull their head up a bit, and you've got a little bit of reaction time. But because I went to pull his head up, he catapulted me face first into the ground as fast as you could even imagine. And I woke up. So I don't even know if I woke up or I come to it on the track, and I couldn't move my legs for about 30 seconds. And all the barrier attendants are there and the ambulance are there with you straight away. And I was like, I can't move my legs. I can't move my legs. And they're like, you're all right. Don't panic. Don't panic. I'm like, don't panic. I can't feel my legs. And I think it was 30 seconds. It felt like 5 minutes, but the feeling came back. And I don't know whether it was shock the spine or what happened, but I ended up fracturing 5 vertebrae and 3 ribs. So then when I came back from that fall, I couldn't help to think that, pick your head up when you come out of the barriers. You didn't want to affect your horse's start because you were worried about it falling or stumbling. But it's very hard, human nature protect yourself. So it was hard to get over those sort of things. And there were times when I went down the line of talking to a sports psychologist to help with that. And amazingly, they had little tricks that would help you get through that. And obviously also having the faith and saying a prayer would help. And I didn't want to be scared. I didn't want to be giving up my passion and what I loved because I was worried that something might happen like that again.
is it a matter of, in your case, you love and you love racing, you love horse racing, you love winning, um, you just love the sport generally. It's in your blood. You've been brought up with it. It is so powerful that pretty much nothing is going to stop you from doing it, whether it's fear, the danger, um, the fact that you're female, the odds are against you even getting the ride in the first place. Whether you got to look after your weight, you've had a number of falls. Is that always overriding everything else? The fact that I love this sport and that's what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah, it's so
That's
fun.
so much conviction towards it,
Yeah.
and it's fun. Is it just because it's fun, or is this is me? I define myself, Michelle Payne. I am a jockey, and I win races.
To be honest, I always thought after riding I could go on and do something else. So many things. I don't think that's definitive, but it was something that I found a passion in and loved. And I think how lucky I was to live a life of excitement like that. Um, the feeling that you get when you cross the line, you've really helped that horse to achieve and win the race, and all the owners, the amount of effort the trainers put in, the staff at home, everything that's involved, and to see the happiness on their faces when you come back in, you can't put a price on that. It's unbelievable, and to have a job where you go to work and you're excited and it's so fun. Like it's not a job. Even though you basically starving yourself and you're exercising off no energy because you can't eat much, and sometimes you might be lying on the couch and think, "I cannot be bothered to get up and go for a run," but you just gotta will yourself and get out there because if you don't make the weight or you're not fit enough, you don't have a job. So, um, I just count myself so lucky to have found, a passion that I could, be so excited about.
How big a part of being successful is actual fitness? Like I guess we're talking about aerobic fitness, but grip strength is probably pretty important. Strengthen your legs to be able to stay on the horse. How important is that in terms of like your regime or during the week and before the race? So I'm assuming you're racing on a Saturday. So, like, let's say the big race is coming up in a month. Do you, like a fighter, you sort of say, okay, I've got a month to get ready for this really big race. So I'm going to go into a proper environment now. I'm going to do this every single day of the week. If you've got like a ritual you go through for that month, for example, before the Melbourne Cup or before whatever big event you're going to go in.
I
Or
think if you want to be a jockey and achieve at the top level, you've got to dedicate your life to it. Um, One thing I learned, which I took away from my falls, was that you have to have a balance. From a young age, I was so determined to do well. I didn't want to take any holidays. I was just wanting to do, well and not risk having time away that I get forgotten about, or all the hard work you put in would be go to waste. But having the falls, you had no choice. You were forced to have that time, and I traveled, got to see the world, and realized that there was something in that, and really thought maybe that happened for a reason. Maybe it showed me that there's more to life than riding and racing every day. And from then, I sort of tried to take a holiday every winter when I could, and basically nearly every winter from that went somewhere different in the world, and explored and travelled and grew in myself. A lot of the time on my own, because I thought that would be a better way to do it. You meet people, you're forced to. So it's all about the balance, but then when you're in it, you're totally in it. You don't hardly can go out for dinner. I didn't get to see my friends from school nearly all of my teenage years because I was so, dedicated to the job. But you want to do well, you have to do well. And that's getting up early. You've got to do the work behind the scenes to get the opportunities, to get the race rides, to get your fitness up. There's only so much fitness you can get from track work because it's not like under race pressure. You're obviously training the horse, you're holding them, your position's in the same point, but there's no nerves you're dealing with,
adrenaline.
adrenaline. There's nothing like race fitness, but you can help yourself at home by doing. I found for me the best way. I'm definitely not a very good athlete, so I had to train harder. Um, Lots of high intensity work, sprint work, short, sharp intervals, just any basic strength work that related to riding. You didn't want to be using false muscles, so you didn't want to be building muscles that weren't going to help your riding. So you
So
really,
train specific
exactly, yep.
for what your sport is.
Exactly, and that's like a lot of core strength, obviously a lot of arm strength, chin ups. Really have to use all your muscles in your body. Really, when you're in that riding position and you're holding the horse, you're using everything without your knowledge even. So, with that, you've got to be very agile because you want to be a part of the horse. You don't want them to even know you're on them. You don't want to be like you go for a run and you got some keys in your pocket, sort of unbalancing your stride or whatever. You want to be with them as one to so that you can get the best out of them. So for me, the best way I found was to do the track work that you had to do. Sometimes we had to do too much. Like, for example, some days I'd ride 20 horses in the morning and before you go to the races. And that was an
Before
extreme.
you go to the races.
Yeah, that was an extreme day, like one of, the toughest. Usually it'd be 5 to 10 or 15. And then you might have a little workout at home, have a little sauna or a spa to lose the weight that you needed to lose. Sometimes you felt better if you had that anyway, even if you didn't have to lose weight because your body was more prepared. I found it helped me. And then, yeah, off to the races. But as I got older and didn't have to ride as much track work to get the opportunity, this probably more post Melbourne Cup, I realized it was easier to have a balance of track work, training yourself, and then going to the races. So, one of the toughest things about being a female rider is you had to really work hard behind the scenes. That's why I was riding 20 horses a morning to get the opportunities, but you're buggered by the time you get to the races. There's only so much exercise and work your body and your muscles can do, especially on very limited food. So, all those things you just have to work out and learn along the way, and you have to really want it because you can't maintain that kind of lifestyle otherwise.
If we could just talk quickly about the Melbourne Cup win, Prince of Penzance. Do you remember the first time you met the Prince of Penzance, met the horse, and did you feel an immediate empathy towards that animal?
I'm not even joking. The first time I saw him was at a real little country track called Colac. We were doing trials. I was coming back from another injury, And I said to his trainer, Darren, I was like, "That's a nice horse." He was just on the other side of the mounting yard, and he said, "Yeah, he's really nice
What's a
three-year-old."
nice horse mean from
Just
your point of view?
an athlete. You look
Yeah,
at it, you can see it in 3 seconds. Gee, that
right.
horse moves well. Like, everything works together. It's got a nice big deep girth, which means it's got big lungs, big heart can fit in there. Everything's just efficient, and you could just tell the way he walked, and he was bold. He was really bold and
Which means, sorry, bold means
wanted to get on with the job. Like,
yeah.
he was bought by a guy called John Foote, who bought him because he said he'd run through a brick wall. He was that bold kind of horse. He said, "Yeah, no, he's a really nice horse. You can see how it goes." So I was trialing him this day. He hadn't had a race at this point, and we were later in the day and a bit unusual, but the track got a bit slippery as the day went on, and we were out wider. So usually on the course is a camber, but because we were out so wide, the camber was running down the other way. As we were rounding the corner with the greasy ground, he slipped and lost his balance, and I swear I felt my knee nearly touch the ground because he went down that far, but he picked himself back up, and he's just so athletic, and I hadn't come off him, and got himself back into stride in a few strides, picked up, sprinted, and galloped to the line and finished second, and I was like, "Oh my god, what is this horse?" Because they just don't do that, and he said, "Yeah, he is a nice horse." So he kept tried to keep with him because I thought he was pretty special. You know, you don't come across that very often in your career. And I've said many times, like through my riding career, I rode 7,500 races and probably over 30,000 horses, even more in track work, and probably five in a lifetime gave you that X factor feel. And he did that right from the start, his very first trial that I rode. So he was just a remarkable horse, an unbelievable athlete, had a will to win, to wanna do it, sometimes too much. He wanted to overdo it, so I think we were a good balance, being a sort of soft touch with him and kind and, always talking to him, patting him and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was just an unbelievable journey, and to think I come across a horse like that in later in my career.
So when you win something as famous in Australia as the Melbourne Cup, and probably even globally in the horse racing world, um, like, what's the deal? Like, is the race when it's over and you can see you won? Is it a bit of an anticlimax because most of the thrill is during the race, or or is it as big a thrill when they sort of announce that you're the winner when you know you won? But where's the thrill lie in the race itself and winning it, actually taking him through to win, or is it when it's all over and it's relief? Where's the biggest thrill?
Um, Honestly, I sit here right now today and can tell you it gives me like butterflies in my stomach to think that I'd still have been lucky enough to win, a great race. It was a dream of mine from a 5-year-old. So to think 25 years later, I was able to cross that line in front on him, it blows me away. So honestly, I can't say the feelings died down. It was an absolute whirlwind from the moment I got off
I can
off
see in your
Prince of
face you're still
Penzance.
smiling.
Yeah. And it's amazing to think that one race can change your life like it has. Obviously, film being made, second book that I've written, been part of writing with a writer, and yeah, just incredible. Like honestly, can't believe it.
Did it change your world much? I mean, apart from all the opportunities you obviously get, apart from the fact now stand for something in relation to horse racing with women involved in horse racing, particularly as jockeys. Um, but how did it affect your life? Was it, apart from the obvious positives, many negatives come with that sort of stuff, like being in the limelight? How do you feel about that?
I sort of been prepared for the limelight through my career, just with earlier successes, so I was pretty okay with that.
As in media?
Yeah,
Yeah.
with media. Sort of being stopped on the street become something I struggled with because I'm a pretty private person. As a jockey, you're self-employed, you're really focused, you're busy at your job. You keep to yourself, pretty quiet because usually you're hungry, so you don't have much conversation.
Got no energy to talk.
It's taken away your personality. So I found that really tough, challenging. But the way I looked at it is you got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
People were lovely everywhere I went. Congratulations! It was so exciting. I'm so inspired by a win. I couldn't believe it. The amount of good feeling that I got from it, and people's reaction. So yeah, it was tough, but like I said, sorry. people were amazing and just blew me away, but I got tired also, so I just had to go home and rest a lot of the time because it was just a bit overwhelming to take on.
You sort of like have to perform a little bit when you do something really good, and then everybody sort of wants to acknowledge it and hold you up on a bit of a pedestal.
Well, that
Um,
was one thing, sorry, the people used to be so excited when they met me, and I feel like I let them down because I was like, "Thanks very much,"
yeah,
but I couldn't be impressive right then and there, so I found it quite tough at the time that, I was letting them down. They're like, "Oh my god, but what you did was so exciting," and again, I'd say, "Thank you very much," and they'd say it again sometimes, and I'm like, "I can't say anything more than thanks very much." Like, I felt the pressure to live up to their excitement. That was really draining and tough.
is that because you're sort of basically a very generous person?
I'm not sure, but
But do you think generosity is an important thing?
100%. Yeah, well, obviously, my life's been made great from the generosity of my older brothers and sisters and
Mm.
people through my life.
Yeah, so like, and then you can only show gratitude once or twice because otherwise, if someone's saying to you, "Look, how well done you've done," and you feel like you show them gratitude, but after you show it once, if you're probably trying to show it a second time, you start to feel like you're faking it.
Well, you don't. I don't know what else they wanted me to do.
I
A
know
cartwheel.
you can't say it too many times. If can we just talk about your book? Obviously, there's the Netflix show which I've watched, and it's a great show to watch, worth watching. But the book Right On, um, what made you feel as though that you should publish a new book?
um, I think, like you said, I have a very positive, optimistic attitude, and if how I got through some of my falls and tragedies could help other people, even if it's just one person, it was well worth the effort of writing the book for. That's the main reason. So, lots of people face challenges. Life's tough, and I've had many of them. And talking about that, yeah, like I said, if the way I coped and overcome things in a positive way could help others, then that's the main reason.
Do you feel as though sometimes I mean, I grew up a Catholic too. My mother's Irish Catholic, and there is this sort of concept in the Catholic family. I don't mean in the church; it's in the family, uh, within your own family, that you should pay forward the luck that you've received or the great things that
Mm.
you've had the opportunity to experience, and you pay forward. And that's sort of like a bit of a gratitude thing. One way of showing your gratitude is share it, share with others what you've learned. And it's sort of like nearly like an ethical or moral obligation from growing up in a Catholic family. Um, do you feel that too, like a little bit of an obligation to share with people something that might help them improve their lives if they're not as lucky as you?
Yeah, for sure. Why wouldn't you? If you can share something that will help others, make their life easier,
Some people
even.
don't say that though,
Yeah.
Michelle. Like a lot of people don't think that way.
Yeah.
Do you think it's got something to do with the way you were brought up and what you experience and maybe perhaps part of your faith?
It's definitely. Also, like the luck I had in my life, and even though I was unlucky to have falls, I was so lucky to recover from them and get back to doing what I loved. So, um, you know, probably it is a bit of gratitude for that luck and the luck I had on the day of the Melbourne Cup. In a way, I felt an obligation for being so lucky to then do good with it. If I can inspire somebody to look at their job in a different way, to strive to be the best, even if they feel like they for some reason shouldn't or they can't. You know, why wouldn't you if you can believe in yourself? Yeah, I just so many different reasons, and like I said, with my older brothers and sisters who helped me and taught me, I don't have any little brothers and sisters to help, but anybody else, any young apprentices coming through, um, you know, absolute privilege and a pleasure to do that.
Is this Michelle being Teresa? Like like paying forward the way your older sister showed you and helped you out to get to where you got to, and as an inspiration, I'm talking about,
Yeah, I'd
and a
say,
motivation.
yeah,
Because you
definitely.
don't have any
Yeah.
younger brothers and sisters. So maybe it's an opportunity to sort of, because we all repeat those good things, and unfortunately, we repeat those bad things that happen in our lives. Unfortunately, we just do. And fortunately, we just
Mm.
do. And And I'm just trying to, because like I'm trying to get to the bottom of why you would do this book. Um, some people do these things out of guilt. Some people do these things to make money. Some people do these things to stay relevant. Like they might have done something in their past that made them very famous, and they try to do something that's relevant. My gut feeling is that's not your case. But also, what I did sort of land on was maybe that's that upbringing obligation we have to share with others what has helped us. And certainly, I mean, I've experienced the same thing. So, um, and I'm trying to work out if that's your mantra right now, to help others.
I think definitely. I think why are we here if we're not here to help others, and to do good in life? So if I can use my platform in any way to do good and to help others, why wouldn't I?
And are there any particular parts of the book? I mean, I read the sort of précis of it. We're talking about overcoming and facing tragedy, adversity, and triumph. Triumph's something you got to face into too. Bob, it's not always perfect,
Mm.
but probably I would have added to that overcoming tragedy, adversity, and overcoming triumph too, because that's something you need to overcome. It doesn't define you because it's only there for a second. It happens on a particular time, on a particular day, on a particular race. That's your big triumph, your biggest triumph. But it's also fleeting. It doesn't last. The next day, the race is over. The next year, someone else is going to win it. So overcoming those things is like really important. And in writing this and putting this book together, is there a sort of a particular part of it, or a chapter perhaps, but a particular part of the book that means more to you than any other part of the book?
Um, to be honest, I was really proud of it in the end. In the lead up, it was something that I wasn't really looking forward to. To be honest, I love living on my farm in peace. Um,
That's Nottingham Farm.
Nottingham Farm, yep. But if, like I said, if it could do good, it was worth the effort to put in and to go back and to remember. Some things are very traumatic to go back over. My
Yeah.
falls, obviously, my sister passed away recently. That's in there. But one of the chapters, which is the first one, which I really love, is talking through the Melbourne Cup, every thought, the strategy, because as I spoke about earlier, I love the tactical side of racing. So many intricate details that can win and lose a race, especially a race like the Melbourne Cup. So for me personally, reading books, sports people's books, was their feeling. You read an AFL player's book, running out onto the field of a grand final. The feeling of the grass under their feet. The crowds roaring, just getting the insights into their mind. So I wanted to give that to the readers, and I really pushed to have it as the first chapter
Like everything
because
you experienced.
yeah, everything that's going through your mind, the feeling from what I spoke to you about, your muscles being relaxed on Prince of Penzance because he was a fiery horse anyway, didn't need to be feeling me nervous on, the biggest day of our lives. So all of those things, like from the mounting yard to the barriers to through the race, tactically, what can happen, what can unfold, like unbring your race, and those split second decisions that you've got to make. I really did my best to give the reader an in depth insight into that. So I'm really proud, and I hope that readers will love that and take a lot away from it, especially young writers that are learning to deal with nerves and learning to, um, think about how a race is going to unfold. Sometimes it really helped me to just visualize lie down before, go to sleep, shut your eyes, visualize it in your brain, jumping from the barriers where you want to land, how you want the race to unfold, and that for me was a really good way of planning and preparing. So
Visualization.
exactly. So if that can help, another rider or even a sports person, might have a swimmer that will be visualizing their stroke in a swimming race or a runner, anything. So, yeah, I was really keen to put that in the book, and I think we did a good job of it. It's the best we could come up with. So hopefully, readers will really take something away from that.
Well, and I've only just got a sort of a pre-copy of it, and what we did was we ran it through AI, by the way, just to because I didn't get a time to read it, but I have got the summaries of every chapter, and just on that particular chapter, that's rising to the occasion. You relive the 2015 Melbourne Cup win on Prince of Penzance. And one of the thoughts that I had when I was reading the summaries was, I wonder whether Michelle, her senses are so alert at the time, and I'm talking about all senses, probably even including the sixth sense, but all sense. Does all of a sudden your sense of smell become really strong, and you can smell the horse, you can smell the grass, you can smell the environment, you can feel things with your fingers? Is that an experience? Is that something that would happen to you when you're walking to from getting your horse and walking out before you mount the horse? I mean, do your senses become extremely alert?
I think you've become so focused and in the zone, all that goes. You can just focus on what you need to focus on, senses through your hands, through your feet, and on the horse. Um,
But that's amazing, Michelle. Like, you are actually able to then put aside all that and actually sort of concentrate those senses that you need, that you know you need. So let's say we've got six, you might be able to concentrate those senses into two or three
mm,
that are just needed for that moment for the next few minutes.
exactly, like the crowd, you can't even hear the
You
crowd.
can't hear the crowd.
No, because you're so
Wow.
in the zone. Well, I couldn't
Well,
hear the
no,
crowd.
but that's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of riders will say they hear the roar of the crowd when jumping barriers, but to me, the race was quiet. I could take through every single step of that race. But I think there's so much happening in such a short period of time that you have to be able to just zone in on what you need to. And
And not waste time on other things.
exactly, you don't have time. You might think of 100 things, and you're like, sometimes I've even thought to myself in a race, how you even think of so many things at one time in such a crazy environment of a race. But I think to do well, you have to be able to do that and to zone in on it.
And did at any stage in the race, during that race, did you get a surprise of anything you did or anything that the horse did?
Well, firstly, he walked out of the barriers. We missed the start by 3 lengths, and I was like, "Oh God, can we stop and do that again?" But
No.
yeah, that's it. It's gone. Game on. One thing that really surprised me, and I didn't prepare for, but I was prepared to be prepared for anything, and that was at around the 1400 meter, 1200 meter mark. Our plan was to stay on the back of the horse I was following, which was Max Dynamite, who finished second in the end. Um, but a run presented 3 off the fence behind the second favourite, Trip to Paris, and at that point, I wasn't prepared to be making a move so far from home. We still had the big sweeping bend of Flemington, but after watching so many replays of the Melbourne Cup, you had to be starting to get into the race. The speed had been really slow. He was travelling strong. In my mind, I just thought that's the path we want
So
to
you
take.
knew the pace wasn't quick at
The
that
pace
point.
was very slow, yeah.
How do you know that? I
You
mean,
just
you
learn to
don't have a watch on
judge.
you. I
No,
mean,
you just learn to judge. So when we got to the winning post the first time after, say, 1,000 meters, it was steady already. You could feel that. Then they steadied up again, and I just remember thinking down the back straight, "Geez, we're going slow." Um,
but
you
that's good
just
because you know he's got more in his tank.
true, but so does everybody else.
Ah, yeah, yeah,
So you
yeah,
need to be getting into a position because the horses up front will sprint because they've had it easy. So
yeah.
we're back in the field. You need to be creeping. So I saw that opportunity, which surprised me because I wasn't prepared to do that. But in the pre-race preparation, I knew every horse, every runner. And like I said, you only have a split second to make these decisions. And I spotted it behind that run behind Trip to Paris and thought, gonna have to do that. And even though I had sort of pretty strict instructions to stay on the back of Max Dynamite, and I thought that was a good plan. I thought, no, I'm not gonna change plan here and go to plan B, and that was just work it out.
But
Actual health.
is that the thought process that you're actually going through that analysis
Yeah.
whilst you're there holding the horse? Everyone else is sort of are they yelling and screaming? All the other jockeys, can you hear people talking to you and say, "Get out of the way," or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. At that point,
"Look
down
out
the
for her, she's
yeah,
about to."
down the back straight, usually everyone's in their spots quiet, silent. No
Yeah,
one's screaming unless you're trying to bump out or whatever. Everyone's trying to get the horse to relax, to breathe, conserving all energy. So it's very quiet. You'd be surprised just hear the thunder of the hooves. And yeah, at that point, I thought, well, I'm going to take, you know, make this decision, and you have to go with it. You can't second guess yourself. Everything has to be done positively. Um, And as we were rounding the corner and coming past the 700, I was absolutely bolting, and I thought to myself, "Geez, we have a chance here, and don't get too excited." Part of my preparation was, if you're in that position, don't get, carried away by the occasion and push the button too early, take off for home. Race can be won or lost in a second, and you start making contact with other runners, bumping into them, you're taking away your energy of the horse. So it was basically about composure and, yeah,
That's a good word, composure.
waiting until the time was right, and, yeah, it was just all, I think, the preparation in the pre-race that really helped on the day.
I'm getting goosebumps thinking about the whole process. I mean, like some people have an opportunity to run their business, over a year, and they can make all those decisions over a year. Your business is one race,
Mm.
and you've got to make all those decisions. And how many minutes are we talking about now?
Um,
From beginning to end for the
3
Melbourne
3
Cup,
3 about 3
3
minutes,
minutes.
yeah.
So you're making all these tactical decisions, responding to opportunities, responding to threats, responding to risks, responding to the animal, your inventory, which is the animal you're riding, then also your competition that's outside of you. It's your brain must be going at a million miles an hour, and the word you use, composure, is a really important word. And to be frank with you, part of the importance of a book like this is teaching, well, sharing with people how to maintain their composure under pressure.
Mm,
This is the most extreme version of pressure
mm.
that like
Yeah.
you can possibly get. I mean, forget it. We talked earlier about all the challenges you got over and above, which is great. But this is an example of, a businessman should be reading this thing. This is an example of a person exercising composure and judgment under extreme circumstances. This is
Mm.
really extreme circumstances, and it's a bit like it's nearly like climbing a mountain without any harnesses or something like that. And but it's sort of, to me, in my mind, I'm aligning it to that, which is something I would never attempt. And I've never really thought about a jockey's job in the way you've just described it, in terms of your mindset at the beginning of the race, making sure that you don't, not everything's beating at once, and you just concentrate on those things that you need to have for the race, the build up to the race, the training programs. Once you're in the race, the tactics, and not getting ahead of yourself, remembering what I'm going to say the coach, but the trainers told you to do, and probably the owners, and but then you've got to exercise your own intuition, because if you don't take that jump when you, that, it, and you say, well, no, you told me.
Yeah, well, to tell you
You,
the truth, there were so many times previously in races where Darren had told me to do stuff, and he said, "What did you do that for?" I said, "Well, you told me to do that." He goes, "Well, don't listen to me.
yeah, yeah,
When you're out there, you."
that's my point.
Yeah, so I learned, and that's the funny thing about so many years, and the Melbourne Cup came at the right time, because at the time I thought, "I'm not listening to you this time, Darren."
You're
I've got
ready.
to follow my judgment, and you're out there doing the job. You've got to back yourself. If you've done the work and you've done the preparation, that's up to you, and you've got to have confidence in yourself to do that.
Good on you that you're sharing all those things for people who pick up the book and or buy it. By the way, is it an audio book, or have you just done a text one?
It is going to be in an audio
Audio
book.
book.
We've got Rachel Griffiths has put her hand up to read it, which
Come on,
is
why don't you do
amazing.
it? I did one once, and it was the greatest pain in the neck of all time. I had to do. I did it over a period of about. It takes a long time, and it's really difficult to do because you're in a little booth. But she's going to do it for you.
She
That's
is. I
fantastic.
know, unbelievable. I'm so grateful to her.
Yeah, that's great, because a lot of people like to listen to these things these days as opposed to sort of sit down and read stuff. And can I just go back to Nottingham Farm? So, how's life as a trainer?
Amazing. It's really hard when you finish a job that you're passionate about, like racing. Obviously, explained it to you how fun it is and
Mm.
exciting and exhilarating. So it's tough when you stop. Life becomes a bit boring in a way because you've taken away that spark. But still being able to work with these incredible animals that we work with, like beasts that they are, that you get their trust and you see their kind eyes when you walk out to see them in the paddock, and
Can you see kindness in their eyes?
unbelievable. Yeah, they just soften, when you come up to give them a pat, and to have that every day in your life is just an absolute blessing. So, training's the next best thing, I guess, from riding in a race. You still get that same excitement when you see your horse go out, basically for battle for you. And all of that work that you've done behind the scenes in preparing them for that, strengthening them physically, mentally, having them prepared to really want to hit the line for you as best they can. So much is involved with that. It's not just a matter of getting a horse fit and sending them to the races. You've got to have them mentally coping, and you never hurt them along the way, because I remember if they race when they're not fit enough, and they were sort of asked to extend when they didn't have enough fitness under their belt. So
Are they sensitive?
so sensitive
Like,
for
I mean, not I guess emotionally is a word, but they are they?
absolutely, yeah, if you run a horse unfit, it's the best way to teach them not to try, because they'll be like, "Stuff this,"
Yeah.
"That hurt
They're
last time."
practical.
Yeah, exactly. So, um, like riding, and it's still racing, so much involved, and so many intricate details that make you successful. So, it just makes it fun and challenging, and really rewarding when it all comes together.
And if you, as a trainer, do you have a soft spot then for a young Michelle Payne who might be sort of out there somewhere looking for a ride and doesn't get it? I mean, how do you play that part? I mean, do you?
Probably a bit tough on young riders coming through to, got to work hard. It's not just you see all the fun and the glitz and glory that, oh, I want to do that. Of course, if somebody really wants to do it and do well, I will give them every bit of advice and sit them down and talk them through everything that I've learned and that could help them. But I also don't want to waste my time if it's somebody who's just all bit airy fairy and thinks it's just a fun thing and
Or that you owe them one because, because some people would think that. They would say, well,
yeah, yeah.
she had the glory run and she won the Melbourne Cup and
Mm.
Michelle's a female and she should be looking after me because I'm a female. It's not about that.
Well, look, like I said, I'm happy to help anybody, but
Mm.
busy and life's busy. But if it's somebody who really wants to try hard and do well, give them all the time in the world, because to pass on the knowledge that I've learned over the years and pass on what I was taught, is just one of the greatest gifts you can have and give people.
Does your dad come out to Nottingham Farm?
Yep, Dad lives down the road,
Oh,
so
you're not far from each other.
no, no, so
Okay.
it's where we grew
So
up, and
Stevie still comes up?
yep, Stevie comes up, rides his bike up there, and he's got a little cabin on the farm, and we own the farm together. So
Oh, cool.
it's honestly beautiful to have had the high of winning the Melbourne Cup and the fun and excitement that I get to do, but then go back to the peacefulness of the farm with the serenity and the quietness. We have no street lights. It's
That's the
just
best.
so quiet. It's honestly living my best life.
Well, I guess from from the summaries that I've got too, though, it's not just about winning the race on that particular day and how wonderful that was, etc. Because life's not just all shiny. Um, does the book lean into some of the more raw things that have happened to you in your career and probably even more broadly just your life?
Yeah, definitely does. We didn't want to just focus on all the positive things, because life's tough and people go through tough times, and that's why I really wrote the book, not just for the insights in the Melbourne Cup. That's just the first part of it. The rest of the book is a lot around the struggles and the challenges that I faced. One was the next year I had a really bad fall. At the time, I was struggling to deal with the Melbourne Cup in the way that it was just exhausting me, and it was such a life-changing race that I didn't know how I was going to keep up with everything, all the opportunities, and not make the most of them, because I thought, why wouldn't you? But it was hard. So at the time, I was wondering how I was going to keep going, and I was heading towards a huge trip in Europe where I was going to ride in Sweden and England, and many opportunities I was so excited about, but exhausted thinking about. And I'd ridden Prince of Penzance in Adelaide and had flown to Mildura on the Sunday to ride, and unfortunately had an awful, horrible fall where I fell underneath my own horse and it stood on my stomach.
Whoa,
And this is in a
600
race,
kilos.
yeah, flat gallop. Um, and at the time when I fell, when I come to it, I woke up on the track. I remember being curled up in a ball and saying, something's really bad. I'm bleeding inside, and we talk about that. And
When you say you're bleeding inside, what does that mean?
I didn't know. I just could feel something bad
Wow.
had happened, and as it turned out, I was flown to the Alfred Hospital later that night and operated on at 2:30 the next morning. I'd severed three-quarters of my pancreas
Oh,
off, and it was hanging by a thread, and they had to remove it and sewed it to my stomach. So having that fall in a way saved me because I guess totally got peace for my recovery, after nearly killing me at the same time. The recovery of that was tough, unbelievably tough. I prayed to God every day to get through the pain each night. I didn't know how I was gonna survive it, and, you know, people go through many things that are hard, and I wanted to talk about that and how I dealt with it, and, some of that was just taking my little trolley of bag of saline and tubes that were coming out of me and going for a walk around the ward. I just walked laps and laps to pass the time when I was able to, get up and out of bed and, just little tricks that might help others to get through really tough times that they get through. So talk about that in sort of pretty good detail. Talk about stalkers that I faced after the race.
As in, people messaging you and they're following you around the joint?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Wow.
Like, I never imagined how bad it could be. People jumping my gate at the farm, coming in. One guy just wandering around. I could see him on the cameras in the middle of a Sunday. Another guy jumped the gate on a Sunday morning through COVID. We're in strict lockdown. Come around the back. It was just me and Stevie there, and was started chatting. I was like, Sorry, guy, mate, you're not supposed to be here, and it's private property." He said, and he started to sort of abuse me for being rude to him, even though he was on my property. And later resulted in him messaging me and abusing me, and passed out down on my dad's front lawn, and had to be um, pulled in by the police.
He
And
did, he passed it, yeah.
yeah, drunk. So another guy went to jail. Another guy got arrested for harassment. So it was many times that I just couldn't even believe. So obviously talk about that and overcoming that, especially living out on a farm. And the one of the toughest chapters I think to write was a chapter on my sister who passed away this year through suicide, and the mental health challenges she faced, and how we tried to get through it as a family, and what maybe we could have done differently.
Which sister was that?
My older sister Bernadette, who used to look after me when I was a baby, used to feed me. She was 11 years old when my mum passed away, and took on the role of getting up in the middle of the night and looking after me and giving me a bottle. Whether maybe she should have had counselling back then and we didn't know about it. Um, just different things we thought we could have done through life that maybe could have steered her path in a different direction.
She probably carried that trauma her whole life of
Exactly.
losing, because at 11 you know what's going on.
Yeah. So, whilst it was really traumatic to write, it was beautiful to talk about her because she was a beautiful person before mental health took over. So that's the chapter I really wanted to write, and I spoke to the family. Do you think I should? Is it okay? Is it respectful to her? Is it good because it will help other people? And they all agreed that if our what we face could help others, then they were happy for me to write about it. And another one is talking about the mental health I've faced. Probably mental health's not the word I should use, but the concussions that I've had, and the worry about CTE and what the unknownness of it, and things I was feeling through that tough time of losing her, and trying to figure out what was the best path to take. And one thing that I learned was knowledge, and going and getting an MRI, seeing what they could find on there, investigating it further, doing further neuropsych tests, and I think, yeah, knowledge is power, and it's helped me a lot to know when I need to rest and take it easy instead of pushing yourself through. Your brain's obviously a fragile thing and has to be exercised, but it also has to be rested at the same time. So I try to talk as openly as I can about that because things that can happen with people with this CTE, and
Or just concussions and dementia.
exactly,
Yeah,
and the scariness of it,
yeah.
and I knew what I was feeling. So I was very keen to write about that.
So just on that one is it's great that you talk about it, because it's rare women talk about it, because it's usually footballers, guy footballers and stuff like that. But there are plenty of female soccer players, and netball players get it too. Soccer girls get it from soccer, from hitting the ball. AFL girls get it. Rugby league girls get it, etc. Female boxers get it. It's good to hear someone like you talk about it, because it's more of a worry than most people give her credit for.
Mm.
And I think what you're saying is that you said knowledge is power. I think what you're sort of saying is don't just sort of lock it up in a closet and forget about it. Do something about it. Perhaps get an MRI, see if there's if the brain looks normal, or do the neuropsych test with a neurologist or a psychologist to see how you respond. Those sort of things empower you a bit.
Exactly. Yep.
At least you can get a sense of how you feel about stuff, and maybe I love it. I love the fact that you did that, because I'm really intensely interested in taking control of our lives, whether it's feeling like a victim, which you've never have, but you could have, feeling as though you might be vulnerable to brain injury, which you could be, but you didn't. You don't feel victim to that. You try to take control of it. They're important chapters.
Mm.
That sort of sentiment. Whilst the winning part of it is really exciting and fun to listen to or read, that sort of stuff is that can be life-changing for some people.
Exactly. And I think, you got to learn by what you live as well. And haven't spoken about her at this point, but my older sister Bridget, she passed away when she was 37. She had a brain injury, and complications of that led to her passing away 7 months later, I think it was. And after my sister Bernie passed away this year,
That's Bernadette Bernie. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, Bernadette, I was obviously very upset and sad. I didn't know if I was depressed. I was trying to figure out all the feelings. And I remember lying in bed one day thinking, why wouldn't you go and investigate this? Like, you're worried about it. I had been worried about it for a long time because, you watch tragedies that happen through CTE. And if you get a chance to read the book, I don't know how my brain is so good considering the amount of falls I've had and traumas to my head. I just thought you're so crazy and stupid not to go and get it checked out when you're worried about it. So the next day, got up, booked an appointment, was able to get in straight away for an MRI, which was just so nice to get in and not have to worry about it another day. And just to start the process of learning more about it. And it took a while. It wasn't an overnight fix where I just felt instantly better. Worked with the doctors from Racing Victoria, who obviously specialise in very wide range of falls from horse racing. And yeah, we started a plan, and it's yeah, like I said before, knowledge has just helped me feel so much more empowered and feel good about it.
And I think that's a really good point. The plan. You got to have a plan.
Mm.
It might not be perfect. You might change it. You might revise it, update it. But if you have a plan, you feel better.
Exactly.
If for some reason you just feel better, it may help you be better, but you actually feel better, and that's part of it. Feeling better.
Exactly, and you don't want to feel guilty if you know that you should be having a rest, but if I personally feel lazy if I not doing enough work or you don't push through to get stuff done. But it's about listening to yourself, and it's stupid not to listen to what's working and what's not working. So that's something that I've really learned as well.
I feel like this straight talk episode has become a Project 100 episode. My other project, my other podcasts. I mean, here we are talking about health, and not I'm not talking about mental health. I'm talking about brain health, and like that's pretty important. The brain is like runs the whole show.
Mm.
You can't replace a brain. You can replace a heart. You can get transplants, all that sort of stuff, but the brain part is really important. And like someone like you who is, I reckon if I fell off a horse, I probably would never want to get up. Like the amount of resilience that you show, and also being able to just take if you're going to do something about it. That's pretty tough. Your old man, he's a Mr. Payne. He's a tough dude, and your mum, who obviously I didn't see her in the show because she wasn't alive, but she must have been pretty tough too, both of them.
Yeah, I think so. Remarkable, really. Obviously, I'm sorry.
What would you say to your mum now? Sitting here
Um,
now, what would you want to say to your mum? She was sitting here, obviously. Let's say she was interviewing you now and talking to you about your two sisters and your life and all the stuff you had to deal with and all the stuff that's been dealt out to you. What would you say to your mum?
Oh, you're gonna make me a bit sad if I think about it too much.
Nothing wrong with being sad. That's a good thing.
Um, oh, I just hope she's proud of us, what we've done with Stevie.
And your dad?
Well, I think well, I see Dad every day.
Yeah. But do you say things to him? Do you tell him what you think?
Yeah, pretty straight up with him. Don't worry about that.
Because one of the things, I lost my father last year at 80, and I regret not telling him some things.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I live down the road, 2 kilometers down the road from him, and sometimes I'm at home, I'm tired, it's nighttime. I think to myself, don't be lazy, go down and see him
Mm.
because I definitely would hate to live with regret. And it's interesting you say that about, what I would feel that I haven't said to him, but um, yeah, I don't think too much. I think we're pretty open with each other. He's pretty straight shooter. Don't worry about that.
I saw that on the show. I was wondering if that was
That was a
a
kind way. That
fairly
was a
faithful way of depicting him.
kind version. Like, obviously, he's a great man, really, obviously kind, and I can't even put into words what I feel about how good he is. And even at 89 years old, he moves with the times, and he goes home and he thinks about things. But yeah, he is a straight shooter, and he definitely doesn't bounce around your feelings, that's for sure. But in a good way, I think he just tells you how it is, and you just have to suck it up and take it on, and find a positive from it. Get better.
Maybe you don't need to tell him anything. Maybe he just needs to look at the daughter he's raised, and that tells him everything.
Well, he gets a reminder sometimes. Don't worry.
Well, I tell you what I did. I started up a whiskey company for my dad. I don't know if that was telling him the right thing or not. I built a whiskey business off the back of him because I know he liked whiskey. Michelle Payne, thanks very much.
Thank you.